Mr. Speaker, you would hope that they would learn from their lessons, but I have no great anticipation that this government will, in fact, learn its lessons. It appears to be the same gang that ran the Mulrooney show, which ran deficit after deficit after deficit. And so, Mr. Speaker, in 4 budget cycles, 5 if you want to count the tail end of the Liberal administration, you've gone from revenues of $222 billion to revenues of $223 billion, which is wonderful. So you've flatlined it. Meanwhile, the population has grown over that period of time by 1 million people. Meanwhile, your expenditures have run from $209 billion up to $272 billion, an increase of $63 billion. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't know how you run your household, but I imagine that everybody sitting up there in this room has to run their household within their fiscal abilities. And if you don't have any increase in your revenues, Mr. Speaker, you can't go crazy on your spending. This government has gone crazy on its spending, Mr. Speaker, and we will pay, and we will pay, and we will pay. In today's news, Mr. Speaker, there was an item about an Australian bank raising its interest rates. If one does it, they're all going to do it. And the environment that the Bank of Canada has created here of low interest environment will go. And if it goes, then all bets are off, because what you see here now, you ain't seen nothing yet. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for York West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and let me applaud my colleague for his excellent comments. But it's certainly one of the things that I don't understand, and how you can continue to spend and spend and spend. And this is coming from a very proud Liberal who helped to make sure that we got rid of that deficit that we had. But how can you continue the spending and then have decreasing revenues tax-wise and possibly think that you can move forward without at some point having to deal with the deficit and having to start cutting many of these great programs that we have? I'm a particular concern about seniors and the pensions that we're talking about a lot. Tell me how the honourable member thinks that we're going to be able to do that in the future.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
Well, one of the reasons we've withdrawn confidence in this government, Mr. Speaker, is that we don't think that they can do it anymore. We think, frankly, that we can do better. And we think we can do better because we're going to have to deal realistically with this fiscal mess that inevitably the next government is going to inherit. And something is going to have to give. Because if my anticipation is correct, that interest rates are in fact going to take off, then the $33 billion that we spend every year on interest to service the national debt will go through the ceiling. And so we'll be talking 35, we'll be talking 40, maybe $45 billion. That will inevitably constrain the fiscal capacity of any government. If that occurs, and I think that's a fairly realistic scenario, even the Bank of Canada's governor says he can only hold the line till June of next year. If the interest rates take off, then the interest rates take off for everybody. They take off for the government, and they take off for everybody in this chamber and everybody watching here. The cost of a mortgage goes up, the cost of doing business goes up, business goes down, and the government is even in a worse situation than it is now. This government has not made the decisions that it could have made during the good times, and we are reaping the whirlwind.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You know, I listened with some interest to the member. He talked about how he likes lower taxes and so forth. That wasn't true in the last election campaign, though, Speaker. You'll remember that he was out wholeheartedly supporting the Green Shift massive tax increase on Canadians. That's what Canadians voted largely against, the Liberal massive carbon tax that was rejected by Canadians. Everyone remembers that. And I don't believe he's ever actually supported any of the tax cuts that we've brought in that have brought Tax Freedom Day 20 days sooner. In fact, we've seen a lot of other jurisdictions in Europe, and even President Obama in the United States, bring tax cuts in for families and individuals and seniors as a method of boosting the economy. This member doesn't understand that, but he says that he's lost faith in the government and in the finance minister. You know who hasn't lost faith is Euro Money magazine. Mr. Speaker, has not lost faith in our finance minister. In fact, they've just awarded him G7 Finance Minister of the Year. Maybe the member would like to speak to that. I think it's quite an honour that our finance minister has just been acknowledged in such a fashion.
The honourable member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
The honourable member could spend so much time on the Finance Committee and learn so little. And it's very interesting that the finance minister should be awarded anything by any magazine, however obscure. Apparently his competition is not all that serious, as the United States has run away trillions and trillions of dollars worth of deficit. So relatively speaking, Mr. Speaker, of course the finance minister is only incompetent as opposed to grossly incompetent. So, Mr. Speaker, the point of the honourable member's little intervention was that somehow or another we've reduced the tax freedom day. Well, there's no free lunches in this world, Mr. Speaker. The tax freedom day may have gone down a day or two, but I'll tell you, debt freedom day certainly went back up. And so we are now going to start going back up that horrible path that we thought we'd learned the lesson, apparently haven't, thought we'd learned the lesson that our finances were not going to resemble that of a third world nation. Apparently that is the fiscal capacity, the fiscal abilities of this particular government. And is it therefore any wonder that we in the Liberal Party do not have confidence in this government?